Hello everyone. Welcome to today's story. James introduces Diep to his friends, but she gets looked down on. What's surprising is James's unexpected reaction. Stick around until the end of the video to see how the story unfolds. Sunlight slanted through the corrugated metal roof of the lumber mill, casting flickers on Diep's sweat-streaked face. The wood-cutting machine suddenly screeched and stalled. She froze, breathing heavily, hand resting on the overheated motor. "The saw's broken. Hold on," she murmured, her voice calm but weary. Bending down to inspect it, she uncovered something no one expected, a thick metal rod embedded deep within the log. Her brow furrowed. "Why? Is there iron inside the wood?" At that moment, the supervisor approached, eyes sharp. "Good morning, boss," Diep said softly. A man named Tuan was also present. The supervisor asked, "Why is the lumber delivery so small?" Tuan explained the rain had made it impossible for workers to transport timber from the forest. The logs they received were only from areas close to the road. The supervisor pressed further, mentioning a company named Beja. Tuan admitted he hadn't thoroughly checked their supplies. It was possible the wood from Beja was problematic. Diep stood quietly beside them, listening to every word. Her mind replayed the cracked, peeling blade, the one that broke from the log containing that iron rod, and confirmed aloud it came from Beja. The supervisor paused, then spoke slowly, almost to himself. Didn't expect John to resort to such petty tricks. She said nothing. Her fists clenched. No one blamed her. Yet the weight of every glance, silent, lingering, made her feel she was standing at the fragile boundary of right and wrong, of responsibility and silent blame. In the clatter of the workshop, her thoughts drowned in that quiet tension between being a worker and being the one caught in the middle. The wheelbarrow was now heaped with sand. The older man who had just helped Diep finish the last load wiped sweat from his brow. "Thank you, Uncle," she said, bending down to check each cement bag. He declined her offer for a drink, already in a hurry to leave. Diep opened her wallet, just 200,000 jong left. "Cement is 200,000 plus 100,000 for labor. Totals 300,000, he said before walking off. She smiled faintly, nodded, and thanked him repeatedly, but stood still for a long moment after, her hand tightly clutching the last of her cash. The midday sun scorched the yard, yet Diep continued cleaning, each movement deliberate, calculated. A thought echoed in her mind. "I guess I'll have to find more work. Otherwise, I won't be able to manage anything." She set the bucket aside, exhaled deeply, and whispered, "I should clean this first." Just then, her boyfriend arrived. "What are you doing?" he asked, stepping closer. "I was going to pour the base, make it clean," she replied. "Oh," he frowned gently. "Why didn't you ask me to help?" She answered, "You looked busy, and I didn't want to trouble Tuan either." He glanced around, slightly concerned. "Good thing that uncle helped. It made things easier for you." His voice softened. "Tomorrow I'll come help. But for now, let's go to town together." Diep hesitated. "Tomorrow I'll help you. Today you go with me. We trade favors," he said. She nodded. He smiled. A new breath began, briefly stepping away from burdens neither of them had the full words to name. The clothing shop stood quietly on the town's main street, its glass windows glowing beneath soft store lights. James entered first, holding the door open for Diep. She hesitated, brushing her hand over each hanger, unsure where to start. "Go ahead, see what you like," James encouraged gently. Diep whispered, "I've never worn a dress before. It feels strange," he smiled. "Just try one for me." She stepped into the fitting room, holding the fabric as if it were something unfamiliar. Minutes later, she emerged. "You look beautiful in that," James said warmly, but her shy gaze betrayed discomfort. "It doesn't feel like me," she replied. He nodded. "Try another." They continued browsing, but eventually Diep asked if she could wear regular clothes instead. James agreed without hesitation. Downstairs, she found a few pieces that felt more like herself. James suggested, "Grab a few more, for work." Diep shook her head. "I still have clothes at home." Her eyes flickered with worry. When she tried on high heels, she stumbled. "I'm not used to these," she admitted softly. James caught her gently. "Every woman learns, step by step." At the counter, Diep watched him scan items. "You've bought me so much, I don't know when I can repay you." Then, like pressing down the weight of everything she'd been holding inside, she said quietly, "Maybe, let me owe you. When I start working, I'll pay you back." James paused briefly, then nodded. "That's okay." And in that pause, neither the dress nor the shoes mattered. Only the unspoken truth, that love wrapped in money often carried a price not everyone could name aloud. Laughter echoed around the reunion room, mingling with the clinking of glasses. James arrived with Diep by his side. She stayed quiet, head slightly bowed, her eyes sweeping over unfamiliar faces that all seemed close to James. They had barely settled into their seats when someone casually waved, "Can I get a new bowl here?" Diep, standing nearby, instinctively turned around, but James's voice cut in, calm but firm. "She's not a staff member, she's my girlfriend." The room paused. Every head turned toward Diep. A few muttered apologies, others laughed nervously. But many eyes stayed fixed, curious, scanning, questioning. Someone whispered, "I thought she was a server." "She looks too gentle." James pulled out a chair. Diep sat down, smiling faintly, though something in her expression began to retreat inward. Then came the questions. "What's your name? How old are you? How long have you been together?" Diep answered politely. Yet whispers continued to swirl. "That dress, wasn't it just 150,000? Pretty, but cheap clothes." A quiet voice at the far end added, "I heard she's already been married once." Diep didn't react. Her hand stayed still on her lap. But each phrase landed like a small shard, slipping just beneath the surface. She sat among cheerful voices, but the warmth didn't reach her. Something chilled in her chest. She couldn't hear every word. She didn't need to. The weight of unspoken judgment wrapped around her like a quiet fog. She realized then, maybe these people weren't ready to see her beyond their labels, and maybe they never would. Not as James's equal, not as someone who belonged. James stood up, holding his glass, his gaze sweeping across the old familiar faces gathered around the table. His voice was low, deliberate, each word placed carefully. "Tonight, I brought Diep with me because I want all of you, my friends, my partners, to know she's the person standing beside me." There was a pause. The chatter softened. Some offered polite nods. Others exchanged subtle looks. "I want to be clear," he continued, "so there are no misunderstandings. So the women still trying to get close to me know I'm no longer available." Diep sat quietly, hands resting in her lap. Her eyes moved from one person to another, reading the flickers in their faces. Half smiles, blank stares, barely concealed judgment. What was meant to be a gesture of pride now felt like exposure. She wasn't being introduced, she was being placed on a scale, measured by eyes that never knew her, but had already decided what she must be. Someone whispered behind a wine glass, "She's pretty, sure, but she doesn't quite match him, does she?" Another chuckled, "That girl? She looks too soft to run anything, let alone be a boss." James leaned in, took her hand gently. "Don't worry, I'm here," he said. She nodded, but inside, something tightened. She knew he meant well, he wanted to protect her, but in this room of quiet disbelief, even his touch felt like armor too thin. There were no harsh words, no open insults. Only a silence full of opinions not spoken, but deeply understood. And in that silence, Diep sat, smiling politely, enduring what love often demands when it crosses the invisible lines others have drawn. A friend arrived late, stepping toward the table just as the tension had begun to settle. "Sorry, everyone, I'm late." The voice came light, casual, yet it sliced through the room like a knife through cloth. Diep looked up, offering a polite nod. The newcomer took a seat, glancing around, then asked, "So, James has a girlfriend now?" Someone smiled, gestured, "That's her." Then came the line, softly said, carelessly delivered, "I heard James's girlfriend. Was married before?" No one answered. But the silence that followed stretched far longer than any explanation could. Diep froze, mid-breath. James poured water calmly, unmoved. Around them, laughter returned, conversation picked back up, but something had shifted. The looks weren't just curious now. They were evaluative. Diep tried to stay composed, her hand clenched slightly on her lap. No one questioned further. No one defended her either. The comment seemed harmless on the surface, but Diep felt the weight of it digging beneath her skin, reopening memories she had fought to bury, surfacing a truth she hadn't planned to share. No accusations, no confrontation, just quiet judgment masquerading as gossip. And that was the worst part. No one blamed her, but no one stood beside her either. She sat there, surrounded by voices, yet suddenly more alone than ever. Even James, sitting inches away, felt distant, unable to reach the emotional place she now occupied. She didn't cry, didn't speak. She just listened to the sound of approval slipping away, and to the silent verdicts already etched into the glances thrown her way. The dinner wound down. One by one, people rose from their seats, waving, still laughing as they said goodbye. James leaned over and said softly, "I should get some rest. Work tomorrow." Diep nodded. "Okay, you go ahead." He squeezed her hand gently, then left, his steps fading into the distance as she remained alone in a room, slowly quieting. She leaned back in her chair, eyes following the backs of people walking away. Their words from earlier echoed like whispers that wouldn't stop. Had a husband before, 150,000, cheap clothes. No one said it cruelly, but no one hid their judgments either. She felt different. Not because they said so, but because they didn't have to. Her gaze dropped to the heels on her feet, beautiful, elegant, painful. Beautiful because they fit what others wanted to see. Painful because they never fit how she moved. Diep exhaled slowly. Loving someone wealthy wasn't just about loving the person. It was learning to walk in a world built for someone else. Every stare, every joke, every casual comment, each was a quiet reminder that she didn't quite belong. She stood up, the shoes pinched, every step a sharp sting. But this time, she didn't flinch. She walked forward silently, not like someone who had become one of them, but like someone who had decided if she must endure to belong, then she would. Not with comfort, but with strength. She wasn't trying to impress anymore. She was simply moving forward, step by painful step.
Diệp là một cô gái lao động vất vả, sống tiết kiệm và luôn tự lo cho bản thân. James, bạn trai của cô, là người thành đạt, đưa Diệp đi mua sắm và ra mắt bạn bè tại buổi họp lớp. Trong buổi tiệc, Diệp bị nhầm với nhân viên phục vụ, bị mỉa mai vì bận đồ rẻ tiền và trong quá khứ từng lập gia đình. James đứng ra bảo vệ cô, công khai mối quan hệ, nhưng ánh mắt của mọi người vẫn đầy định kiến. Dù không ai nói trực tiếp, Diệp cảm nhận sự xa lánh, không thuộc về. Kết thúc, cô im lặng rời đi với đôi giày cao gót đau nhói, thầm chấp nhận yêu một người giàu không dễ đến thế.